Okay, I'll call to order the regular city council meeting for Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023 at 5:30 PM. I'd ask that members in the audience and at the dais, please silence your cell phones, put them on vibrate to limit interruptions. Moving on to item 1 on the agenda, please call the roll.
Burlingame. Here. Evans. Here. Janser.
Here.
Olson. Here. Pittner.
Here.
Quadrigula.
Here.
Ross.
Here. Item 2, Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to item number 3, the mayor's report. In lieu of the mayor's report, I am going to ask everybody to offer up a moment of silence for the loss of one of our own. Thank you for paying your respects. At this time, I would also like to call to the podium Chief Klug, if you have any updates on the schedule for the week.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I asked the mayor for a few minutes this evening to express a few thoughts about the loss of Officer Patrick Blanchard on Thursday, December 29th, shortly after midnight. Past several days have been difficult. The officers and staff of the Minot Police Department have been working hard to continue the mission while caring for each other. I know some may think it's a little cliche when we refer to the PD as a family, but the level of care and support I've seen and experienced since losing Pat is above anything I've experienced in 29 years. We will continue to serve the community while grieving our loss. We will recover. We will grow together as a department, become stronger and more cohesive unit as we learn from this loss. The coming days will be difficult. We have received outstanding support from the Minot community and from the partners in the law enforcement community across the state of North Dakota and beyond. There will be a memorial service for Officer Blanchard on Friday, January 6th at 10:30 a.m. at Minot State University Dome. The service is open to the public per the family's wishes. At approximately 11:30 a.m., the service will conclude and a law enforcement procession will escort Officer Blanchard back to Thompson Larson Funeral Home via the preset route through the city of Minot as displayed on your screen. This map and description is also posted on our social media pages, and it was provided to the media so the public is aware of the disruption that will occur that day. Lastly, we ask for the community's patience on Friday while we remember Officer Blanchard. The administrative operation for the department will be closed. Law enforcement services will be provided by Ward County Sheriff's Department and the North Dakota Highway Patrol, and possibly a few other agencies from across the state from about 8 a.m. that morning until about 5 p.m. I'd like to thank you for thinking of us, and I ask that you keep my dedicated staff in your thoughts and prayers in the coming days, and I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Are there any questions of John? Thank you, John.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to open it up and invite members of the council if you have any thoughts or comments to add. Lisa?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My thoughts and prayers have been with Officer Blanchard's family and his extended family at the Minot Police Department for the past several days. Law enforcement staff are often referred to as brothers and sisters, and this tight familial relationship extends to the loved ones at home. Being part of a law enforcement family for over 30 years, I've witnessed this time and time again. It is difficult to put into words how tight this connection is, but I believe that our community has seen a small taste of it this week. To Officer Blanchard's children, please know that your pain is our pain, and your love and pride in your father has not gone unnoticed. I am confident that you will have several aunts and uncles in blue who will be part of your lives for years to come. To the staff of the Minot Police Department, please know that we see your pain and acknowledge that you have not missed a step in still serving and protecting the citizens of Minot. Thank you for your service and professionalism in this tragedy. I know firsthand that you witness grief on a daily basis, and this is incredibly difficult. I encourage you to reach out to your coworkers, your administration, your elected officials, and the community to let us know how we can support you. To the citizens of Minot, thank you for your care and concern for the Blanchard family and the Minot Police Department. Please don't let this memory fade away. Continue to support our law enforcement officers, our fire service employees, and our emergency services personnel. They need us as much as we need them. As we continue through the days leading up to Officer Blanchard's memorial service, I pray for love, peace, understanding, and support for everyone impacted by this tragedy. God bless the memory of Patrick Blanchard.
Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else? Okay, if not, let's move on to item number 4, the city manager's report.
I don't have a whole lot to report. I didn't have a whole lot in the report either. I took some personal time off last week, spend time with family. Obviously, that was interrupted a little bit, but with the news last week of Officer Blanchard, and I don't know that I could say it any more eloquently than Alderwoman Olson just did. But you're right. Our public safety officers, police and fire, and all of them do well. We lean on them in our darkest moments, and they're trained to be leaned on. But it's something different and more difficult when it's one of your own, and it's a little bit more personal. I had very few interactions with Officer Blanchard, but the ones I did were very positive. Appreciated his sense of humor and his wit, and he'll be missed. Based off of some of these, and as we gather more information, I do think that's something that we need to focus on as an organization coming up into our budget conversations is mental health of our employees. For our public safety employees, but all of our employees, and how we can do a better job of being connected and knowing when help is needed and bringing that help to the table if we're given the opportunity to do so. And so that's my personal commitment to our employees as we go through this budget process, is trying to find a way that we can, if we can find a way to improve how we can help mental health of our employees, we need to have some serious conversation about that. But with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that the council may have with regards to the city manager report.
Anything for Harold? Not, thank you, Harold. Moving on to item number 5, city attorney report.
Mayor, members of the council, I submitted a written report. One thing I just wanted to draw your attention to is that we're looking at scheduling an open records, open meetings training with the Attorney General's office shortly after the legislative session in July and August. So if you could check your calendars and just let us know what weeks and times would be good or bad for you, we'd appreciate it.
Any questions or comments for Steph? If not, we will move on to item number 6, and that is a public hearing. Public hearing on the Tax Increment Financing District number 2022-2, the TRAX Phase 1. This is a time, open the public meeting for anybody who wishes to speak for or against. Like?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. First of all, I'd just like to express my sympathies to Officer Blanchard's family and to all the coworkers here, city and staff. Just hard to follow up the very nice words that have been spoken up here, so I'll do my best, but it kind of puts things into perspective sometimes. I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as I can. So this is just a little bit of information about our company, what we're planning to do here. I know it's not information to everybody, not new information to everybody up here. You know, we've talked about this at quite length over the course of, I'd say, the last year and a half, prior to even talking about the M building. We've worked on numerous projects in the area, and so I'll just kind of scroll through these quickly here, just to give a little bit of information about who we are as Epic. And I apologize if I didn't even introduce myself. I'm Blake Nybach, and I'm the COO with Epic Companies. Many of us are from the area here. Myself, Todd Burning, Vicki Campbell, we've got a number of employees here in the area, so just wanted to highlight a few of our key individuals here before I get into what we're proposing for the tracks. One unique aspect about our company is that we've got several different components to it. We've got an event side of things that works on community events, items like art shows. We sponsor different things throughout the community at our public spaces, and we're about, you know, kind of enhancing those quality of life items and creating some new opportunities for those type of things. We've got staffs like local artists, you know, work on kids events all the way up to, you know, larger items such as concerts that could happen in a plaza that we've helped create. Also work on the Hustfest side of things for the first time this year, so we were excited to be a part of revitalizing that with the community. As part of the plaza that we created at the Lights in West Fargo, as part of a private-public partnership there, we helped spearhead a group called West Fargo Events. Now, this is a nonprofit entity that's in charge of running those facilities. The parking ramp there, the plaza space, those are actually owned by the city, and so this was a group that was set up to help manage those facilities and for the adjacent hockey rink. Some of the things that they do as a nonprofit is they've got some gaming locations. One of the gaming locations that's right at the Lights facility at an establishment called Bar Down, that brought in over $280,000 in 2021. And that money goes straight into helping program and run those public spaces at that facility. So we've got a little bit of background here about who that particular group is running the West Fargo events, and then some of the other opportunities that go on at those events. Literally everything from bull riding, movie nights, community theater. We've got outdoor ice during the wintertime. I've been there in the summertime, and there's yoga in the plaza, kids' arts events. One of our tenants at the building, Bell Bank, they put on like an event called Kidchella, where they bring in some kind of youth-oriented music and have some inflatables and different things like that. So just a neat venue that gets utilized quite a lot. Some other projects that we've done in the area, Blue on Broadway. That was an affordable housing project that was partially funded through NDR funds. Got some main floor commercial square footage. We've also done some affordable housing at the Park South site. The first building there was 40 units, and then we just completed our second phase, which included 22 brand new slab-on-grade patio units. The Beaver Ridge facility up on North Broadway was another project that our partners were involved in. And then most recently, we've been working on the M building. I was in there today. It's pretty exciting to see the progress. I think they're down to the 4th floor with the asbestos abatement. And I was touring some prospective tenants through on the 1st and 2nd floor for the commercial space. Now getting to the tracks, what we're here to discuss. So this development is a 15-acre development, and as we're talking about the TIF and what that would be utilized for, it's all for the public space there. There isn't any dollars for this TIF through the abatement that would go towards any of the buildings or any of the sites that aren't the public amenities. As proposed right now, 7 buildings. We're starting on the 2 easternmost buildings that you can kind of see in the kind of on the right corner of that site plan rendering there. And then we've got a couple renditions of what the actual buildings look like there. The first building, the Maverick, is the one that you'll see if you drive out by the new Trinity Hospital. The precast is up. The stair tower is up in part, and so that started just this last fall. The Sheridan building, the second building, that's planned to start in the spring of this year. Again, some of the amenities that if the TIF is approved, the public plaza, splash pads or other water features, public skating, the programmable stage, a lot of what we've seen as very well used and well received public amenities for that space. I already talked about a lot of these different events that have happened there, but this kind of highlights a few of those again. And this is just to show a little bit about some of the other areas that we've done this. In the middle and the bottom there, that's our POW MIA Plaza that we did in West Fargo on Cheyenne Street as part of our downtown redevelopment efforts there. We're working on similar projects, the Beacon in Grand Forks, Eola by Epic on 45th Street in Fargo, and then it shows a couple of live versions of that public space being utilized. Some other benefits of the tracks, we are bringing some new housing online, going to bring some new commercial opportunities there with main floor and second floor space in the first building. But what the TIF is really about is all the public amenity space. We've seen how this has kind of created a destination, how much the public utilizes this space, and we really feel it's enhancing the quality of life, and it's 100% open to the public. I kind of talked about the operations a little bit, but yes, there'd be a nonprofit advisory board to oversee the facilities, similar to what we did with the lice at West Fargo, and it truly is leveraging private dollars of the new development to help fund these public amenities. We also help support that through operational fees for our CAMs, so our commercial tenants, as part of being right adjacent to that facility. They help support that through additional charges towards them. We've got charitable gaming revenues that I mentioned. We've got a community video board that's going to help support that. So a lot of different ways to help support this amenity so that we can do it without sticking other funds into it. Just a couple pictures of some other views of what it's like at the lights there. They've got a video, they've got a events calendar that it's literally used almost every day of the year, and it's pretty exciting to see. These were just some letters of endorsement. We did receive the Governor's Choice Award for our plaza at the lights. It's been well received. I apologize if I've repeated that a few times, but it started out as such a unique concept, and to see it come to fruition, and it's hard to explain sometimes. I know some people have been to the lights and have seen it. That's what we're trying to recreate here. It truly is a destination space, and sometimes it gets hard to explain, and you show pictures, and it's kind of hard on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper to demonstrate what it looks like when you get 6 and 7 story buildings around it, and you get a 6-acre space that really transforms into something special. This was just a copy of our application that we had submitted. And then this gets into the heart of what we're looking at. So this kind of breaks down the phase 1, which is the 2 eastern buildings, the Maverick and the Sheridan, identified in blue on the screen there. Again, this phase 1 TIF, no dollars going in towards the buildings. This is all for the public amenities. So the utilities are going into it's not utilities for the building, it's utilities to help run the plaza space. It's the land that the plaza is sitting on, the video board in the corner, the turf and the concrete, the lighting and the sound, and a portion of the FF&E budget that we've got for the first phase. And I say a portion because the plaza won't be completed. There's some items like crowd control and some things that we had at our plaza at the lights that weren't included in this first phase, just because until we can get to that point where we can utilize that, it's just something that's not needed. This slide was to help demonstrate the tax value and the benefit to the community. Even though we're asking for an abatement so that we can provide these public amenities, once those buildings come online, it does catch back up, and then it starts paying even more in taxes. And I think it's even demonstrated better in this one. We're projecting that when it's fully developed, our development with the TIF will bring in almost $800,000 more annually than if we developed it without the TIF. And that's simply because we wouldn't be able to do as high dense of a development, we wouldn't have the amenities, it wouldn't be as quite a dynamic of a place. And so it's just, we won't do as much out there if we don't have the TIF to create this place. Again, just in summary, we're hoping that we'll be able to leverage these private dollars to create these public amenities, create a higher taxable value for the area. Community gets the benefit of all these public amenities because they are 100% open to the public. We've seen the increase in value that it's had around our developments too. Land prices, they seem to go up. It spurs other development, so I think it'll be good for the community in general, certainly not just at our area. And then it creates a long-term active space that again, we're hoping it takes off like it has before for us, and it's a true destination space that the city can be proud of. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Any questions?
I have a few.
Carrie?
Nope, Scott, go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you for coming, Mr. Nybach, and I have a handful of questions. And some of them I might know the answer to, but I think the public helps to, or may appreciate it. Just to be clear, the public spaces you're talking to, that will be open to members of the entire public, not just to the tenants of the rest of the facility,
Absolutely,
correct?
yes.
So talk to me a little bit about the Nonprofit Advisory Board. Do they actually own this space?
Yes.
And who is that, so is that 501c3 been established at this point?
Yeah. So we've got a group set up called Epic Charities that's set up.
So that's out of, is there going to be local representation on that?
There will be, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they have gaming permits as well at this point? Did I hear that?
The intent is to have that. We don't have any locations, so I don't think that the permits have been issued yet, but yeah, the intent is to have permits right at this facility. And then we're going to have other charities throughout the state that will help support this as well, because as part of that, we're going to expand our sites, so.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott. Carrie?
Okay, ready? Okay.
I'm ready.
So these aren't, so sometimes I really appreciate when journalists prompt questions. And so there was an article today in the Minot Voice that I thought had some very good questions. I forwarded it to you, saying I wanted to ask you some of these. So they're not, like, some of them where I'm like, oh, I would like to ask that. So I thought these were some really good questions that the Voice brought out. So piggybacking on the public amenities portion, so why is this a part of it? Is there a lack of public amenities for turf fields and ice rinks and event venues? Like, why is this part of the plan?
I'd say it's part of the plan because we've seen how that's enhanced other communities that we've done it in, specifically in West Fargo, and how that's spurred other economic development. It's really made for a unique living scenario that has been very well received. Our commercial businesses are full there. I think of our first two buildings that are open, we've got probably 60,000 square feet of commercial space between the first two floors of both of those, and I think we've got 1,800 feet available. So we're probably at 98% occupied there. And again, it's just everyone that I shouldn't say everyone, it's been very well received from the community. We've got a lot of positive feedback from it, and rather than trying to recreate something, we'd like to use this model as, hey, this has been proven, we've done this in other communities. We think this would fit well here as well.
And the examples you gave of the other communities were the lights, right?
Yeah,
And was there another one?
yeah. We've got 2 buildings under construction in Grand Forks right now.
Okay,
And then we're doing a similar development with some more green space in Fargo as well.
terrific. And those will all have a public component to it?
Yep.
Okay. If the completion of the public amenities advertised in the first project is tied to the approval of the second project, why was the project split into 2 phases?
Well, so it was split into 2 phases. We wanted to start construction this year.
Okay.
And so when we were working on our original application, we had our first 2 buildings ready to go. I wanted to get the application in so that we had that before we did any construction activity there. I think splitting it into 2 phases, even if for whatever reason, we know that we can't predict who's going to be on boards or anything like that, or the timing of all of this. But we feel that with the amount from phase 1, it would still be a nice amenity if something happened in phase 2. I mean, we're going to do it smartly, but it certainly wouldn't be a completed plaza. We know the capacity of the first 2 buildings, and so that's kind of why we broke it up like that.
And you refer to that report, you know which one? What's his name?
The Maxfield study?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we get a copy of that? That seems really interesting. Or is it proprietary?
Well, it's proprietary, but I can see if we can get a copy to you, yeah.
I mean, it just, because, I mean, they talk about, these, so when I've talked to you about this, my question was whether or not this first phase had a low LMI, a low and moderate income component and requirement from us. And it does not, which sort of concerns me because these are going to be units that are like higher than average market rates. So talk to me about EPIC's commitment to LMI and what this governing body is not assure, I'm not, you don't have to give me your blood tonight, but what is EPIC's commitment to LMI with this project and future projects in Minot?
Yeah, well, I think particularly with this project, I think it could be a good fit out there. With the hospital coming online, I think LMI sometimes gets stigmatized negatively. There's a lot of people that qualify for LMI housing based on their income levels, and some people might be surprised at that. Now, we didn't have that included in here with just our first 2 buildings, but certainly with 5 other buildings coming online, I think that we could find a place for LMI housing if that was a desire. We've been a part of that with our nonprofit, which I'm a board member of, Essential Living. Some of those housing projects that I showed, some of the projects that we completed at Park South, that was all done through, that was all affordable housing up there. Blue on Broadway is all affordable housing. So we're certainly not opposed to looking at affordable housing component of this. It just wasn't included in this first phase, nor did our full budget reflect that. So if affordable housing was to be included, I think we would just need to look at our total budget for the entire development and how we could, make sure that we had the appropriate increment to account for that.
Well, and I think timing, Harold, I mean, we've talked about the housing study that your office is going to commission. I mean, it may work very well with the phase 2 timing, right? When you want to tell us a bit more about your grand plans.
Yeah, a bit of a sneak peek for the next meeting. Mr. Billingsley and his staff have been working closely. We've developed an RFP to do a housing study so we can determine what the future potential growth of Minot will be, what the housing needs will be at the different stratas. So low to moderate income, full market rate, upper income housing. What do those look like over the next 10 years? Where are we deficient? And then if council approves, putting the RFP out and the funding for that, once that study is completed, we'd be able to come back and talk more comprehensively on how we can help make sure that those needs are met in our community over the next several years, especially with some of the major military projects coming up out at the base here in the next 5 to 10 years or whenever that happens here at Minot Air Force Base. Being more prepared for that, being more proactive for that, and that that study will be a key piece to that going forward.
So I think the timing with that, because we're going to hopefully have a more precise, tool that we can use as a community on what is needed, instead of just being like, LMI like is a vague concept of, what that particularly looks like.
Sure.
One of the other questions posed was, what impact does a project like this have on the attitudes of smaller real estate developers and property owners towards continuing small investments in Minot?
I would hope it's not a negative one. What we're trying to do is bring some amenities that enhance the entire community. And I think you've already seen some of the growth in that area with the new hospital coming online. The TIF is a tool that's open to anybody to use. You follow the century code. It's not like there's a magic formula to it. We've just seen how we've been able to use this successfully before. We feel it's a great way to leverage private investment from developers to create some public spaces. Again, this is a totally separate deal from what we did at the M building, where I think that was another great utilization of a tool like a TIF, where we took a potential liability and were able to leverage private investment, use a tool like a TIF, and hopefully develop that into a terrific building that's coming online within the next year or so. So again, I would hope it's not a negative connotation at all, and I would encourage other developers to take a look at it. Yeah.
I think that's all I have, Blake. I may have more, but that's.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Blake?
Can I ask 2 follow-ups?
Go ahead.
Sorry. I'm hogging the mic here. I actually couldn't read my handwriting the first time, so following back around here. So obviously, this is going to be, ultimately very much defined as a mixed-use facility. There's recreation there, there's commercial, there's potentially, from what you say tonight, and I definitely would be in favor of this, some LMI housing, some market rate housing, and perhaps even some higher-end housing, which I think what I've heard a lot is we need all housing and need more. How has that been received in other communities, that kind of a fully mixed environment?
I think it's been well received. So this would be the first time that we incorporated into a newer development like this. We talked about it at the city of Fargo, but our first discussions didn't go very far there. We decided to move forward and not pursue a TIF for one of our other developments. But I mean, I guess I haven't really been. I haven't heard any opposition to it. A lot of times when we're working in different municipalities, you kind of get a feeling for what their needs are and what the likes are. So yeah, I mean, I'd say it's I haven't heard anything negative about it. I could see in certain instances where if you were trying to do a certain type of development, but again here, or you drive by Blue on Broadway, I bet most people that don't know about that, I bet they don't think of it as an affordable housing facility. It's a mixed-use building with 42 really nice apartment units in it. So,
and then finally, can you talk to me a little bit about accessibility in the public part of this? Last thing I would ever want to do is approve a TIF for anything that's not going to be fully accessible to everybody that potentially wants to use it.
Sure.
So can you give me some examples or show me your commitment to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, for example, at the lights in West Fargo, I mean, it's fully 100% open to the public. There are times when it's rented out for private events. But otherwise, I mean, you show up there at noon on a Tuesday for lunch and there's kids throwing football out there, or they're playing beanbags or using some of the art games out there. I took my kids there a couple weeks ago and there was an open skate from 5 to 10 o'clock that was totally free. Go up, get your skates and go out there. So, I mean, I don't know how else to commit to it other than saying, our intentions are to, for it to be a fully 100% open to the public facility.
Thanks. That I did, care about that, but what I was talking about specifically here was like ADA type accessibility.
Oh, sure. You know, I might not be the best to talk about that. We've got a lot of architects on staff, and I know when we're getting, whether it's building permits or going through code studies, anything like that, you know, accessibility is always a component to that. So, you know, any facility that's associated with it, whether it would be a parking structure or, you know, access from the public out there through, you know, ADA ramps and such, yeah, we would make that, that would be incorporated into it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Carrie?
So this is a public hearing, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I just see two of our county commissioners here. I know you're not involved in this first phase, but certainly if we go to phase 2, I mean, that's something that the commission will be involved in. And so I'd like to give the two of you an opportunity to ask any questions of the developer that you may have, right? You know, because we want to, you know, do this differently this time and make sure the commission is in with us from the get-go. So certainly I appreciate you two coming and want to give you the opportunity if you want to ask any questions of, you know, us or of Blake, just so we can all start this process.
Why don't we start, before we
Okay.
get to the commissioners, and no
they
offense,
may
but I
not
think
know.
Lisa maybe had a
Yeah,
question.
I did, and so I had, a citizen called me over the weekend with some concerns. But one concern or one question that he had, and I didn't have the answer to, was we can say that the public plaza is open to the public, but in the other communities, how many people are coming to it? I mean, do you have an idea? And I'm sure it varies from event to event, but do you see more coming from, you know, the close by residents, or do you see people coming from all across town?
I guess from my experience, I've seen, you know, kids who I'm assuming are neighborhood kids riding their bikes there in the summertime when they're not in school. And I've also had, you know, conversations with people, you know, it is a destination there. So they've been coming from other parts of the town. I might not know where all of them live, but yeah, I don't think that it's only being visited. You know, there might be a way to quantify that through, you know, our friends at West Fargo Events, but yeah, I mean, from what I've seen anyhow, it hasn't just been the immediate regional traffic there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Paul, do you have any questions?
No questions at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, thank you, Blake.
Thank you.
We'll leave it open if one of our commissioners have anything to go.
Come on up. Come on up to the microphone. We have microphones here. Is it for Blake or?
For Blake, or maybe you
It's
guys
whoever,
already know
okay.
that. The only question that piques my interest is, this part of it, as I understand it, is just going to be handled by the city council. And the phase 2 part of it then potentially is going to be handled with, as previously with the Big M building?
Because it's a longer duration,
Is
right?
that the,
Right.
Why-
Harold can explain the distinction
If I can
there.
address that. So this first phase is a 5-year TIF, similar to what the Blue on Broadway project was, and by state law, that is handled by the city and the city council specifically. Phase 2 is a much broader scope, and this is one of the unique pieces of this that I want to point out tonight. As I understand it, this is the first master development agreement in the state of North Dakota with regards to a TIF. But even with the master development agreement, it does not preclude state law. We still have to go through all the processes, and that's outlined very clearly in the agreement, that phase 2 still has to go through all. So this, if the council takes any action tonight and approves it, that does not pre-approve anything in the next phase. It has to go through all that, and the developer accepts all risk and responsibility if that's declined in phase 2 as well. And I think that's why some of the phase 1 and phase 2, the public amenities are tied specifically to those. So if phase 2 doesn't happen, as far as approval of TIF, then those public amenities that are part of phase 2 won't be constructed. And so, but to Commissioner Feldall's question, yes, the phase 2 is a big enough ask, and be a long enough period of time that it will require approval of both the county commission and the school board for that TIF to go into effect, similar to the M building.
so then, Mike, clear it up for me, the public spaces you're talking about are part of phase 1 or part of phase 2?
So there's a half of a plaza that's part of the first phase, and then the other half of the first plaza and all of the second plaza is part of Phase 2.
So the public amenities part, percentage-wise, are more part of Phase 2 or Phase 1?
I'd say the bulk of it is a part of Phase 2.
Okay. That's just the questions I have right off the top. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Any other, go ahead.
I can continue with a couple more comments. Sure. So the other piece of this too is, as staff negotiated this, a lot of the risk is on the developer. A lot of times TIF, they're looking for the city to use its bonding capacity to issue debt guaranteed by the taxpayers to pay for that. And then if the project goes belly up or doesn't happen, the taxpayers get left footing the bill. This is designed specifically that the city will not be using any of its bonding capacity. The developer will be using their financial resources to be able to do that, and this will be rebated back or abated through that process. And it's also developed, and maybe somewhat to the consternation of Epic, that the pressure is really on for them to develop with the time frame, because if they delay, their potential to capture that TIF is minimized over that period of time. So it's this development agreement is really designed to put a significant amount of pressure on the developer to build and build in a timely fashion. Otherwise, they don't realize the full benefits of the TIF, and that's done intentionally. And so, and then just in general on comments on this, as you saw, there's multiple examples of this being done throughout the state. And I think this is a great partnership with the new Trinity Hospital. As far as public access, I can envision a lot of people that are visiting family or loved ones or just need a break from the hospital across the street, and this will be a great venue to go over and disconnect a little bit, get some food, enjoy some public amenities, some quality public amenities, maybe some entertainment on occasion, those kinds of things. And I think this will be a great partnership with the new Trinity Hospital out there. But more importantly, as he's talked, these types of developments are going up all across the state, and ultimately, I guess Minot could choose not to participate, but we're going to be at a much more significant disadvantage because these are developments that are more attractive to the younger generations. This will help with recruiting with doctors and nurses and teachers and all those kinds of things, because these are the types of amenities that they're going to want to live in. And these are the types of developments that are drawing people to downtown Des Moines, downtown Kansas City, and those kinds of areas. It's a process that has been tested and developed over time in some of the other communities, so we get to benefit from some of the trial and error in North Dakota to make sure that this actually works. And then more importantly too, though, is a lot of these projects that are being done across the state are being invested in by a lot of our local Minot residents. So why wouldn't we want to have some of that investment stay here within our own community and continue to help us stay competitive and attractive as one of the best communities in the state of North Dakota? And this is what TIF is designed to do. This is what it needs to accomplish. And as Mr. Nybakken stated, it's also intentionally designed that the only costs that we're allowing to be incorporated into the TIF are those public amenities. We're not allowing it to be used to develop the commercial space or the apartments or the condos or any of that. That is all being paid for on the private investment. What we're paying for is these public amenities, the plazas, the community board, those types of things that all of our public can benefit from. And I would go so far as to say is I'm sure Epic can continue without the TIF, but the development won't include those public amenities. And those public amenities will benefit the community as a whole in addition to Epic. So.
I have one more question. I don't know if Harold, who can answer this. So I know we've done a lot of infrastructure down there with the new hospital. What additional infrastructure accommodations are foreseen with the addition of this project?
That may be more for Lance, but as far as I know, it's there. I mean, we have the intersection improvement that's going to be done. The council took action on that previously on creating a special assessment district as part of Trinity, but that intersection will be designed hopefully with improvements for pedestrian access across between Trinity Hospital and the tracks project, should it go forward. But as far as I know, most of the infrastructure is out there.
Alderwoman Evans, we're in a great position for infrastructure in Southwest Minot. We have all the, excuse me, we have all the water and sewer and road infrastructure we need, and council approved a traffic signal assessment district to start here
okay.
this spring, so we should be in good shape.
And I'm assuming as that area continues to develop, your department will be continually monitoring it to see what additional accommodations may need to be made.
That's correct. As each development proposal comes in, we evaluate them all the same, whether a traffic study might be needed, utility study, those sort of things, so we can understand the scope and impact of each development, just like we did with the tracks.
Right. Thank you, Lance.
You're welcome.
Don't sit down. Somebody may call you back. I'm joking. Seriously, that's all I have now. I'm done.
Just one other
Done.
comment real quickly, if I may, and that is, as staff discussed, this development is done through another new methodology within our ordinances of the planned unit development, PUD. And should this go forward with the council tonight, there are some changes that will need to be done to the PUD that staff will need to work with EPIC to make sure the PUD matches some of the changes that are outlined here within the TIF application.
Any other comments from the dais? Any other comments from the audience?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Mark Lyman. I'm the Economic Development Specialist for the Minot Area Chamber EDC. And I just wanted to share that the Minot Chamber EDC has voted in support of using TIFs as an economic development tool. So as a general rule that is out there, we support using TIFs as an economic development tool.
Thank you, Mark. Any other comments? Last call for public comments.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, first-time caller, long-time listener. And I apologize for not being able to be there in person this evening. I have a case of strep throat, so working through that at the house. So, but I just wanted to kind of give my insight. I sat as a liaison to some of these meetings with EPIC and city staff, with Brian Billingsley, with Harold, our legal, across the board. Very productive meetings. This was not a small undertaking. These were meetings that I think started in conjunction with some of the Big M stuff. We're probably coming up on a year of having some of this discussion. And I just wanted some of to point out some of the high points that came up in these discussions, and things that boxes we thought we were checking, and hurdles that we thought we were maybe clearing with these projects, and this project in particular. Harold mentioned it being proactive for not only housing, but the military projects that will be coming through our neck of the woods within the next decade. We all saw what happened, post-flood, at the beginning of the housing boom. In Minot, where we saw about 40 some hotels go up seemingly overnight, and maybe we're a little overbuilt because we were behind the 8 ball and we had a good portion of our inventory wiped out from a flood. I'd rather be on the front end of this this housing need at this point before that comes to our doorstep. Alderwoman Carey Evans had brought up, how does this affect investors? And I think that's a question that came up throughout these meetings as well. In my free market mind, competition is good. Simple supply and demand is good for the community, is good for people that are looking to rent, for people who are looking for housing. If there's a good supply to choose from, the prices are going to be friendly and not be gouged, and people aren't going to be taken advantage of. Me as a small business owner, I welcome competition. It makes me work harder. It makes me hungrier. It makes me have to fight for what I want, and that's for business. So again, I think it's a good thing. It's a good business climate to set in the city, and just the overarching, this is I'll say this is my own personal view on this. We talk about and we hear the shatter just being in the seats that we're in and in government, local government. We talk about and we hear the points. We're Minot. We're not Fargo. We're not Bismarck. We don't have an interstate. We don't have this. We don't have that. We're in the middle of nowhere. Quit acting like you're these communities. Well, right now we have an opportunity where you could very closely consider a local investor looking to invest local dollars into a local project to improve the quality of life, take it and utilize a tool that's been set forth by our state government, and provide some really good public amenities. I think it's an opportunity for us to take advantage and really knock a project out of the park. We have a proven community partner. This isn't, I'll say it because it still boils some people's blood. This isn't an investor looking to put up parking garages that from out of state, right? This is people that have done projects not only across our state, but within our own community, within the borders of our city, and they've done well. And they've gotten the job done. And one of the things Alderman Burlingame stated is their local representation on that nonprofit board. That was a sticking point for me being in those meetings and for staff, that there needs to be local representation. If people don't like the way that this nonprofit is running things, there needs to be some skin in the game that a citizen of Minot can pick up the phone and call someone that they'll see at the grocery store, that they'll see, and they won't be in Fargo, they won't be in Bismarck, they won't be in Minneapolis. They'll be right here. They'll be a fellow citizen of Minot, and they'll be accountable to citizens on this project. So again, I just wanted to provide that as insight into some of those meetings, and also I'll take the time to thank staff. I'll thank Epic, Blake for traveling and making their way here to really be a partner in our community and look to invest in our community. So those are my thoughts, and I'll stay quiet at this point.
Any other comments from the audience? Last call for comments. If not, what are the wishes of the council?
Don't we have to close the public hearing? That's usually Paul's job. Move to close the public hearing.
We have a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second by Scott. Any further discussion? If not, call the roll.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Burlingame.
Yes.
So we have to take, do we,
Yeah, now I'll do the next motion.
okay, go ahead, Karen.
So I'll make the motion to approve the TIF district and the other thing, execute the master development agreement.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Carrie, second by Steve. Any discussion? Scott?
I just want to kind of add on to what Alderman Pittner just said a little bit. I think that one of the biggest challenges facing our community is housing. I think it's a future challenge. This helps to address it. But one of the biggest thing probably facing our community is we need employees. And one of the biggest things you hear, or one of the biggest sources of future employees is our young folks. And one of the biggest problems you hear when you talk to young folks is there's nothing to do here. This has the potential to create some activity within our community, to create some entertainment within our community. Now, I don't necessarily agree with them. I think there's tons of fun things to do here, and they should look a little harder, but I'm an old guy and they don't listen to me all the time. So I think that this has so much potential to bring added value to our community and make Minot a place that people want to live in, that they want to have their careers in, that they want to raise their families in. And that's why I'm going to vote yes on this issue tonight.
Any other comments? Steve?
I'm also going to vote yes for many of the reasons that have already been cited, but I wanted to kind of put them on the record. The city is involved in litigation with several developers where developments have gone south, to put it charitably. This is not what we're looking at here. We're looking at a local company with significant local financing, with significant local leadership that has a proven track record of succeeding in Minot. And that's really, really important to me right now, particularly with all the problems we've had in the past with developers from outside who I think have taken advantage of us in the community. So these people have a track record. It very much is like Harold says, that this is the trend both in our state and nationally. I read the papers from New York City a lot, and right now they're looking at a multi-billion-dollar project to develop something like this by Pennsylvania Station, the old, or the new one that they desecrated and destroyed the old site that was a landmark. And, it's full of the usual graft and corruption you see in New York City politics and the inefficiency. But we're talking about the largest city in the country spending tens and tens of billions of dollars, giving all sorts of tax breaks to developers. And this our project here seems much better designed, much more realistic, and much more achievable in what they're talking about there. So this definitely is a trend throughout the country. When I travel to Fargo, I see nice new buildings being built. I think the same thing is starting to happen here. Public-private partnerships are clearly what's happening and what's going to be happening for the foreseeable future. I like the fact that this also, in a sense, fills in some development. When Trinity decided to go to the edge of town on the southwest side, in a way it was like a sore thumb sticking out by itself. There is a small residential neighborhood near there, west of there, but it's all by itself. And please don't misunderstand, I don't think that it was feasible to build in downtown Minot, or rebuild rather, a new hospital complex. A hospital complex, you have to pretty much start over. I don't think there's any economical way to do it otherwise. But the point is, it was going to be there by itself, and now we're looking at putting significant commercial and residential development nearby. So in a sense, we're amortizing, we're taking advantage of the infrastructure we've built, the roads, the sewer lines, the water lines, things like that. And we're trying to build out to the current edge. It should give people a chance to walk to work if they work at Trinity, or bike to work. It should remove or decrease vehicular traffic. It'll create a hub, a mini hub, of development out there. Again, these people have a track record. This fits in with what's happening throughout the state and nationally. The drawings look pretty nice, quite frankly. I like the idea of building in multi-use spaces, public spaces that are accessible to everyone, both in terms of potential disability issues and just freedom of passage. It seems like a very well-designed, very well-conceptualized project. And I think in the long run, again, the numbers show the city will be making money, the taxing entities will be making money off of this. We defer a little bit of gratification, but in return, we get a lot of community development and improvement. And in the long run, we end up richer by $2 million in tax revenues. So I see this as a very, very good project, and I think it deserves our support.
Any other comments? Yes, Steph.
Mayor, Alderwoman Evans, can we just confirm the motion? I believe I heard you motion to approve the TIF district and the master development agreement, but there's also a resolution attached, and I just wanted to make sure that wasn't missed.
Yes, so move to do number 2 and 3.
Okay.
All of it.
Any other comments? I think that, just to echo some of the comments that have already been made, the notes that I've been making during the public hearing is, things that have stood out to me, the hospital, I think it's proven that the new hospital down in West Fargo helps spur growth in that area. And I think Blake will probably, can probably address that if I want to. You don't need to, but I think it's no secret that putting the hospital out there and the investment that the city has made, $36 million in infrastructure or more to that area, is really planting the seed for growth out there. And like what the other council members have said, the makeup of Epic, they've got skin in the game. They're from Minot. Mr. Burning, he's vested in Minot. There's probably no one I know more that has invested more in this city, event-wise, time and sweat-wise, to make this city stronger and to create victories for Minot. This isn't an investment for January 4th. This is an investment that's going to pay off for generations. For generations. We get to make a decision that's going to improve things for our grandchildren and to make things right, to make things good for Minot. I think this is the start of many positive types of developments in Minot, and that's why I'm going to give my full support to it. Any other comments? If not,
Just wanted to make a
go ahead,
correction. I
Steve.
spoke about the new hospital being a sore thumb. I meant a thumb sticking out by itself, sort of like the state of Michigan or an island. I didn't mean to realize they could be misinterpreted. So it used to be an isolated area by itself, and now it'll be part of a greater whole.
Let the notes reflect.
And I did, I did have the opportunity to talk with both the mayors of Fargo and West Fargo about this. And the mayor of West Fargo, he's 100% on board with this. He's excited about this, as is the mayor of Fargo. It's working there. And yeah, we're not Fargo, we're Minot, and we're gonna make it work here. I honestly believe that. So, with that, please call the roll.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padragula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Burlingame?
Yes.
Motion carried. Moving on to item number 7, consent items. We have 19 items on the consent agenda. We have been asked to pull 7.16. What are the wishes of the council?
Move approval on the remaining items.
Motion by Lisa,
Second.
second by Mark. Any discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padragula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Burlingame?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Moving on to 7.16, we have Councilman Padragula and City Manager Stewart have asked to have this pulled. I'll turn the mic over to Harold.
Thank you, and if I may, might invite Mr. Jason Sorensen to help answer some questions here. But the reason I wanted to pull this is, over the last 6 months or so, we've had a lot of press coverage with regards to trash coming out of the landfill into some of our agricultural fields and those kinds of things. And I wanted to have an opportunity to at least address to the public how this action tonight, if approved by the council, would help alleviate that. And as I'll let Mr. Sorensen correct me if I'm wrong, but right now we have one cell open, and it's very high. And on days of high wind, as trash blows out of that cell, it's up high enough that it's pretty easy for the trash to clear our fences there. If the council approves moving forward with this, what this would do is it would provide a new cell to be open that would be at a lower grade. And on those windy days, that would allow our staff to be able to manage of shifting trash deliveries to the lower cell on those windy days to help minimize some of those challenges that we're having out there. But I just wanted an opportunity for staff to address that publicly, and that we are listening to the public. We are trying to do what we can to alleviate the problem out there, and this may be one of the best options for that.
Mayor Russ, City Manager. Yeah, I think you basically answered all those questions appropriately. I would say that the spring of '22 is probably an anomaly. Usually over the course of winter, trash does get out of the landfill and it gets on the fields near our landfill. And then we usually spend, a few weeks in April picking that up before farmers hit the fields in May. Well, we got 48 inches of snow toward the end of April, which delayed everything. So generally, I think we've been pretty good neighbors. Stuff does get out of the landfill, but we try to get out there and pick it up before spring's work starts. Currently, just as reference, I think if you're on the highest elevation in cell 6 today, you're probably about 80 to 90 feet above ground level around the area. Our tallest fence around the landfill is 16 feet tall. So on a day when there's a 65-mile-an-hour wind, it's really not very difficult for trash to get off the landfill. So a brand new cell, they're about 15 feet below grade. So basically, once a new cell is built, we have to get 4 feet of cover across the entire cell. But then after that, we can kind of reserve that low ground on days when the wind is over, 20, 25 miles an hour. It starts wanting to blow around, and we can always utilize those low areas then to try to keep it contained within the landfill.
Do I need a motion to start?
I'll move.
Go ahead. Okay. Motion by Steve.
Second.
Second by Scott. Further discussion. Steve?
Yes, I had 2 questions for Jason. First of all, what's the likely lifespan of this cell?
I would guess probably in the neighborhood of about 5 to 7 years.
Okay. Second question I had was, what impact, I know this is difficult to predict because we haven't gotten started with yet, but what impact do you think recycling might have on lengthening the lifespan of this cell?
we tried, when we were first talking about recycling, we tried looking at that to try to model. It's really tough because we don't know exactly how much recycling, what the participation rate is going to be, but any amount of trash that doesn't go in there is going to help some. I would say give me a year, and once we have some real data from, or even 6 months, once we have some real data from the City of Minot recycling program, we can probably better predict that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Harold.
I just want to follow up with additional comment. So again, talking about the fence, and maybe some of the public may ask the question, well, why not just build a taller fence? Well, the challenge comes with, one, structurally designing that, and two is how tall do you go? And then three is, if the fence does its job and catches all the trash and the plastic bags and all that kind of stuff, it very quickly becomes pretty ugly visual. And how do you get up there and clean that off in a safe way? And so, again, this is an alternative that we think will be effective. It's probably not the only solution, but it is an element that will contribute significantly to being a better neighbor out there.
And while Jason's up there, I just have a follow-up question. Sure. We still on track for curbside recycling later this year?
Mayor Ross, Alderwoman Evans, yes. We're saying July 17th. It would be the 6-year anniversary of automated garbage collection. Wow. We should have all the pieces in place to start rolling it out on that Monday.
Fantastic, but it's definitely happening in 2023.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
Any other comments? If not, please call the roll.
Padragula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Burlingame?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Moving on to action items, item number 8.1, 2020 and 2021 abatement request by Stonehaven Development LLC and 55th Crossing, Inc. for 733 vacant lot parcels and numerous 55th Crossing additions. What are the wishes of the council? Wishes of the council?
I move that we would uphold the recommendation from the city assessor's office and deny the request.
Second.
We have a motion by Lisa, second by Mark. For any discussion? Is there any discussion from the audience?
Yes, there's some, is this on? There's some discussion from the audience. My name is Jessica Klein, and I'm an attorney with Olsten Burns Law Firm here in Minot. I represent 55th Crossing Incorporated as well as Stonehaven Development LLC. And I am the individual that put together all of the abatement requests for the 733 parcels. Those abatement requests are duplicate and for years 2020 and 2021. So it was a lot of documentation. It's my understanding that the application, the additional information that went with my applications did not make it to the council members, and I was wondering if I could approach the dais with those documents.
I don't see any problem.
So included with each of our requests, it looks like from the memorandum from Mr. Drews that we need to clarify our request a little bit. Each of the applications that was submitted with an Exhibit A, and I've attached all 3 of our Exhibit As. Each parcel has the application that you fill out, but some of the parcels we're asking to be assessed at agricultural land value, and some of the parcels we know and understand don't meet that criteria, but we're asking for a reduction in the tax rate. If you look at the packet, the first Exhibit A goes through the statute, and it looks a little bit more painful than it is. Some of those parcels we're certainly asking that they be taxed agriculturally. The way the statute works is that you're kind of in until you're out. And so because this property is being used primarily for agricultural, raising agricultural crops, at this point, the majority of this property is being utilized. The ones that we've made the requests for agricultural taxation, they are being used at this point. Obviously it's winter, but during the summer months, there is alfalfa planted here, and this property is hayed a couple of times a year. We are, and I'll go through kind of with the map where these are located and why my client would like an assessment at agricultural rates rather than the R1, R2, and C1, C2 assessments that he has now. The second exhibit talks about the parcels that are zoned as R1, R2, and C2, and we're just asking for a reduction in the taxable values on those. And then that third exhibit A talks about the lots that were previously used for the FEMA temporary housing. Prior to the meeting, I was asked if I intended to address each of the 733 parcels individually. I don't. To summarize, for the parcels, we feel that they meet the criteria of the statute. As we asked that those agricultural parcels be taxed at 1 cent per square foot. I'll tell you, I went to law school because I can't do math, but the valuation on that works out to $435.60 an acre. After the hearing on the request for abatement with Nedrose Township, it came to our attention that agricultural property in 2020 was taxed at $597 per acre, and in 2021 it was at $603. So we understand that if the council makes a recommendation that the property should be taxed as agricultural property, that's the value that would be attributed and not our requested value of a penny per square foot. I contacted Derek Hackett earlier, and he promised he would put a map of the utilities up if I asked him nicely. So Derek, if you wouldn't mind putting that map up, I would appreciate it. And if you look at the maps that we provided in our packet, the first map that addresses the farmland kind of coincides with the map here that was provided in Mr. Drews's packet. The criteria by which you determine whether or not property is agricultural comes under the North Dakota Century Code, and it's 570201. And I've been here before, and we've had the same argument on whether or not the agricultural property fits the criteria or not. But under this statute, it's in until when any more of four of the conditions exist. And one is that the land is platted by the owner. We know and admit that we absolutely have this land platted, so that would be one of the four. That there's public improvements, including water, sewer, and streets are in place. And so when we look at this map here, the parcels, the large portion of parcels that we're requesting agricultural taxation for are listed on the city's map as saying that they're an area without utilities. So on the right-hand side of the map, or the property that would be to the east of Nedrose School, all of that is where this alfalfa is being farmed. So we do not meet the criteria under 2, that the public improvements are there. 3, there is no topsoil removed because at this point, like I said, there's alfalfa being farmed there. 4, the property is zoned as agricultural, so at that point, that would be 2 that would be against us. I guess I would argue that there's not an urban atmosphere. The only people that, I guess there probably is some homes, but that appears to be on the west side of Nedrose School and not the east side. And that the parcel is less than 10 acres and not contiguous to agricultural property. My argument would be that all of the property is agricultural, and so we don't think that criteria fits. Even assuming that it did, that would still be only 3 of the 4. And then the property sells for more than 4 times the county average. And in this case, it didn't. There's some other parcels on this map that if you look, that we're requesting an abatement for. on the smaller parcels to the west of the 55th Street Southwest. On those parcels that are platted out, that would be the old FEMA lots. And so one of the reasons that we're making a request for a reduction in taxable value on that is because the property this property does have improvements, like water and sewer and things like that, because obviously people were living out there. The problem is that these improvements don't meet city or county requirements to develop the lots today. They were put up temporarily in an emergency situation. At this point, there's concrete parking pads and gravel roads, but obviously the expense to remove the previous improvement and start over at this point isn't cost effective. We have 733 available lots out here, but the city of Minot only permitted 573 single-family homes in the last 7 years. So even assuming that they all went to this particular piece of property, we would have more than enough to provide for the need of 100% of what's being built in the city, and we can't assume that we're going to get 100% of that building.
Any questions? Anything else? Okay. Gary, what, you have questions? Okay.
Well, Damon, have you had the benefit of reviewing what she gave us? And do you have anything you would change on your recommendations or feedback?
Good evening tonight. So, yeah, she's right. We've got 733 vacant lots that we're looking at times 2 for the 2 years. So we're dealing with over 1,400 abatements. The assessor's office continues to recommend denial for the abatement requests. It appears the applicant is asking for a variety of farmland and a discounted or a lesser rate on some lots that have water, sewer, and paving out in front of them. It's the assessor's office opinion the highest and best use for all of these vacant lots is as residential and commercial properties. There's also a couple reasons that some of these abatements could be denied because the abatements weren't filled out accurately. Some of them are abatements aren't signed, incorrect parcel numbers which makes it harder for us to know which properties they're filing for abatements, and then there's some calculation errors in there. So she went over some of the 7 requirements as outlined by the state tax department. On a lot of those, we believe that they meet at least 4 of the 7 requirements. Those are that the land is platted. In that map, Derek, if you can bring up number 1. Public improvements such as water and sewer, you can see the water and sewer are the blue lines and the red lines going across there. So water and sewer are located or available to lots located on Sadie Lane, Williams Street, 14th Avenue, portions of 60th Street through 63rd Street between 17th and 18th Avenue. The crosshatched part up on the top right corner, those meet a minimum of 4 requirements. We believe the city assessor's office supports that the remainder of that meets probably 6 or 7 of those requirements. The 4 requirements that the top right of the map would meet would be land is platted, topsoil has been removed or disturbed so it can't be grazed, property is zoned other than agriculture, property is assumed an urban atmosphere because of adjacent residential. on 3 or more sides. So the 3 or more sides would be to the north of that area is rural residential properties of 2 or 3 acre size lots. I believe most of that is built on. You've got Nedrow School and the new fire station to the west. And then to the south of that crosshatched area, down a block, you've got rural residential again. So those are your 3 sides. Number 6, the parcel is less than 10 acres. You can't look at that crosshatched area as one parcel. I didn't count them, but there's 60 or 70 parcels in there. And each one of those is less than 10 acres. So that's how the state looks at it. That's how we're gonna look at those. And I don't know what that property sold for when the owner bought it, but if he bought that at a time, we would need to look at what the county average was, say in 2010, see what he paid for it, and if he paid more than 4 times the county average, then that condition would also qualify. So I don't know if his representative knows what that was paid for when he got it, but we don't. It is also the assessor's office opinion that the property was fairly assessed with consideration to its location and improvements as compared to other similar properties. Additionally, it is our position that the property was assessed properly within the tax assessment laws of the state of North Dakota. So, Derek, if you switch to attachment number 2, please. So as you can see, the properties up in the top right corner where we don't have any water and sewer utilities in the, those are valued at considerably less than, let's say, the properties over on to the west of where Nedrow School is. Some of those lots that are valued at $20,000, they've got water, sewer and paving in it. As you move up to the lots just north of that at $10,000, they've got water, sewer, and gravel roads. So that's why there's a difference in those prices. If you pull up attachment 7, please. And go to page 3. So this was a listing brochure that we found out on the internet just recently here in the last month or so. And on page 3, all I did was total up what their asking price was for this entire subdivision. Their asking price off of this listing is just shy of $48 million. So I guess just in conclusion, we've got about $9.3 million on these properties that are here for the abatement tonight. They're asking for a reduction down to about $1.3 million. And if anybody has any questions, I can.
Any questions of Dana? Steve?
And just to be clear, when you say that the property meets 1, 2, 3, or 4 of the criteria, even if it meets one of the criteria, they don't get the abatement according to law.
In order for the property to be classified something other than agricultural property, it needs to meet 4 of the 7. Is that what your question is?
Yes.
Okay. So we believe that all of the properties meet a minimum of the 4 conditions set out by the state.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Damon. We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padragula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Burlingame?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser.
Yes.
Moving on to item 8.2, the approval of the Magic Fund grant for United Pulse Trading Incorporated. What are the wishes of the council?
Move the item.
We have a motion by Mark. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lisa. Any discussion?
I have a question
Sure.
for Mr. Lakefield. Wait, the memo's from him, right? Yeah. I'll ask it while you're walking up to save time. How is this different from what we did on November 7th? Didn't we do like a $267,000 magic fund on November 7th for AGT?
Mr. Mayor, Alderwoman Evans, I think this is, the difference is that was the recommendation from the Magic Fund.
Okay.
So this includes the business incentive agreements and the PACE documents, the agreements necessary to fully execute that.
So
And
it's
the
not different. It's not an additional $267,000. It's just now the details of the money.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Alderwoman Evans, and if I remember correctly, we had brought together, there were a couple of recommendations that evening in November. So we brought those recommendations forward, and then this is the documents to fully execute that, including the budget amendment and the PACE agreements.
Perfect. Thank you, Dave, for that explanation.
Any other comments or questions? If not, please call the roll.
Janser.
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Pittner.
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Burlingame.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to 8.3, 2023 Streetlight Improvement Cost Participation and Maintenance Agreement. What are the wishes of the council?
Move approval.
Moved by Lisa. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. Any discussion? Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Olson.
Yes.
Pittner.
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Burlingame.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Janser.
Yes.
Motion carried. Moving on to 8.4, the Northwest Area Water Main Replacement Bid Award. Wishes of the council.
Move the item.
Moved by Mark. Do we have-
Second.
Second by Lisa. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Janser.
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Pittner.
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Burlingame.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to item number 9, personal appearances. This is an opportunity for anybody in the audience to come and address the council, if you so choose. Anybody? If not, we can move on to item number 10, that's miscellaneous and discussion items. Anything from the council? Anything at all? If not, that leaves only item number 11, and that's adjournment.
So move.
Moved by Mark,
Oh, Paul has
Oh.
to do it from the phone.
second by Pittner, by Paul. All in favor? Say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.